It started with a lock that was cut in broad daylight. No warning, no call, no citation taped to the windshield. Just the sound of metal snapped open and my Jeep being dragged away by people who thought they had authority over something that didn't belong to them. What they didn't know was that the vehicle they were seizing wasn't just mine, and the rules they thought protected them didn't apply anymore. By the time they realized what they'd done, the damage wasn't just physical. It was legal, public, and irreversible. Because when power-hungry authority meets the wrong target, consequences don't knock. They arrive fast, and they don't leave quietly. The neighborhood looked like every brochure HOA communities love to show off. Clean sidewalks, symmetrical landscaping, identical mailboxes lined up like soldiers. The kind of place where everything appears calm on the surface, but control runs just beneath it. I moved there for peace. After years of unpredictable schedules and high-pressure work, I wanted quiet. I wanted order that made sense. A place where rules were clear and life stayed predictable. The HOA rules seemed strict but manageable. Parking regulations, landscaping standards, noise limits. Nothing unreasonable. At least, not at first. I own a Jeep that stood out. Matte black, slightly lifted, not flashy, just functional. I parked it in my designated space, exactly where the HOA map said I was allowed to. It wasn't blocking anything. It wasn't breaking any visible rule. But some people don't need rules to feel threatened. Susan Whitmore ran the HOA like a private kingdom. Longtime board president. Immaculate appearance. Always carrying a clipboard. She had a reputation for maintaining standards, which was really just code for enforcing authority wherever she could find it. At first, her attention came in small ways. Glances. Notes slipped under my door reminding residents to remain compliant. Emails sent to everyone, but clearly aimed at one person. Then came the parking reminders. They were vague, worded carefully, referencing policies without citing violations. I reviewed the bylaws. I checked the diagrams. I was compliant, completely, so I ignored them. That's when the tone changed. The warnings escalated quickly. Formal notices replaced reminders. My Jeep was suddenly described as a repeat issue. Susan claimed it violated aesthetic harmony. Then came accusations of unauthorized vehicle storage. None of it was true. I documented everything. Dates, photos, map. I responded in writing. Calm, professional, factual. The HOA stopped replying. Instead, new notices appeared, this time with deadlines, threats of fines, language that implied action without discussion. Then one morning, the Jeep was gone. The parking space was empty. No notice, no warning, no orange sticker, just tire marks and broken plastic from where the lock had been. My first thought was theft. Then I found the remains of the cut lock. The HOA had ordered tow, not for a violation, not after due process. They had cut my personal lock and seized the vehicle themselves. That's when the situation crossed a line they couldn't uncross. Because the Jeep wasn't just personal property. It was registered under a joint operational agreement. It was used intermittently by a regional police task force for logistical transport and surveillance support. They hadn't towed a car. They had interfered with an active asset. And they had done it without authority. I didn't confront them immediately. I let them continue believing they were in control. Susan sent a smug email later that afternoon. She framed it as enforcement, claimed the HOA acted within its rights, mentioned storage fees, threatened further action if I didn't comply. That email became evidence. Half follow was a cascade. Formal inquiries, legal notices, requests for documentation the HOA couldn't produce. Susan doubled down, insisting the association had authority to remove unauthorized vehicles. The fines stacked up. The language grew aggressive. They were trying to intimidate their way out. But outside eyes were now watching, and the HOA had no idea how exposed they were. The final meeting wasn't dramatic in the way movies portray conflict. No shouting, no chows, just silence. The board sat stiffly. Susan looked composed, but her confidence was gone. The Jeep's status had been confirmed. The lock cutting was documented. The tow authorization was non-existent. Every assumption the HOA relied on collapsed under scrutiny. Their legal counsel went quiet. Susan tried reframing the incident as a misunderstanding, then as a necessary enforcement action, then as a clerical error. None of it mattered, because authority doesn't exist where jurisdiction doesn't, and power evaporates when challenged by something real. By the end of the meeting, it was clear. The HOA wasn't defending a rule anymore. They were defending themselves. The Jeep was returned without explanation. No invoice. No apology. The fines vanished from my account overnight. Susan stopped emailing. The HOA quietly revised enforcement policies. Towing authority was suspended. Board meetings became tense and sparsely attended. Residents started asking questions. The illusion of control was broken. Susan stepped down months later. Officially for personal reasons. Unofficially because authority built on intimidation can't survive exposure. The neighborhood didn't fall apart. It improved. Rules became clearer. Enforcement slowed. Power redistributed. And I learned something important. HOAs don't rely on legality. They rely on silence. The moment silence breaks, everything changes. Because authority only works when people believe it's absolute. And the moment it isn't, it disappears. If someone claims power over what you own, ask one question. Who actually gave it to them? Because when entitlement mistakes itself for authority, the consequences don't just correct the problem. They redefine the balance of power forever. I walked past my Jeep that evening, sunlight fading across the driveway. Peace wasn't loud or celebrated. It was quiet, deliberate, unshakable. Control had shifted. Authority had been questioned. And I had reclaimed what was mine, not by force, but by knowing when to stand firm. The neighborhood felt different. Safer. Calmer. Just as I had wanted all along.